the first part of story, we followed the strange discovery that began as a simple sonar anomaly and unfolded into something far greater. We watched as Commander Alina Graves and her team descended into the silent depths, guided by dolphins and confronted with a structure unlike anything on Earth. We saw the Odyssey make first contact with an alien craft and witnessed Alina and Dr. Jonas step into a chamber filled with mysteries, human relics preserved, impossible technologies glowing, and the realization that this was not just an ancient structure, but an invitation. But that was only the beginning. What they found inside the chamber raised more questions than answers, and now the world's most powerful forces are moving into play. Secrecy, science, and military caution will collide as the discovery takes on a new name and a new purpose. So, let's continue with the next second chapter of this journey. The sun had barely risen when the order came down from Washington. The strange structure beneath the Atlantic was no longer just a mystery. It was an operation. The name chosen for it was Project Silent Tide, bland enough to hide its true nature. To the outside world, the Navy was simply running a deep-sea mineral survey. But within the floating research hub hastily constructed above the trench, everyone knew the truth. They were standing on the edge of history. Commander Alina Graves returned to the platform with Dr. Jonas Merrick, her mind heavy with what they had witnessed inside the alien craft. Their reports had been immediately classified, sealed with the highest level of secrecy. Even so, the energy in the air was different now. The place swarmed with new arrivals, soldiers, technicians, and scientists flown in overnight. Dr. Leona Valdez, an astrobiologist from NASA, She had spent years studying theoretical models of life beyond Earth, but nothing had prepared her for the idea that such life had been waiting just beneath the ocean's surface. Colonel Marcus Kane followed close behind, his sharp eyes sweeping the deck with suspicion. Kane was known for his uncompromising nature, a man who had spent his career treating every unknown as a potential threat. To him, the glowing craft was not a miracle, but a danger waiting to unfold. Alina watched them disembark and felt the balance of power shift. What had begun as her mission was now expanding into something much larger. She was still in command of her crew, but the presence of high-ranking officials and renowned scientists meant decisions would no longer be hers alone. Inside the central operations tent, the first official briefing of Project Silent Tide was held. The room was crowded, the air thick with tension. Maps of the Atlantic Trench, a live feed from sonar, displayed the pulsating shape of the alien structure below. Dr. Jonas Merrick stood at the front with his notebook open. Sketches of the chamber spread across the table. "This structure is not natural," he said firmly, his voice carrying more weight now that Washington was listening. "The geometry is precise, deliberate. The chamber we entered displayed symbols and preserved artifacts from human vessels lost across decades. This is evidence of a presence on Earth far older than our records suggest." Colonel Kane cut in sharply. "Or it's evidence of a threat. Unknown technology buried in our waters, influencing marine life, collecting ships and planes. These are not the actions of benevolent observers." Dr. Leona Valdez raised her hand, her voice measured but firm. Colonel, with respect, unknown does not equal hostile. What Commander Graves and Dr. Merrick encountered suggests observation, not. They aren't behaving randomly. They're acting like intermediaries. That implies communication. The room buzzed with whispers. Alina remained silent, watching the debate unfold. She could still feel the chamber's glow, the sense of being welcomed. But she also carried the weight of her orders. Keep calm. Keep cautious. Containment is our first priority, Kane declared. No leaks, no public awareness. As far as the world is concerned, this is just another research mission. Containment is important, Leona agreed, but our second priority must be understanding. If they've been here for centuries, if they've been shaping dolphin behavior, then we are dealing with intelligence on a scale we've never faced. Shutting it away out of fear will not protect us. Alina finally spoke, her voice steady. Whatever this is, it's bigger than us, bigger than nations. But fear and curiosity, Gerald Huxley himself sat at the head of the table, his hands folded. He had listened in silence until now. Finally, he spoke. Project Silent Tide will move forward with two priorities. First, security. Second, exploration. Colonel Kane, you will maintain control of military operations. Dr. Valdez, you and Dr. Merrick will lead the scientific team. Commander Graves, your crew will continue submersible operations. But remember, everything you see, everything you learn, does not leave this room. The orders were clear, but the unease remained. Over the next days, the platform became a hive of activity. New equipment was lowered into the depths. High-resolution scanners, advanced sonar. Meanwhile, the dolphins continued their strange behavior. Every day, pods gathered around the platform, circling in flawless patterns. Their calls filled the water with rhythmic pulses, and sometimes those pulses matched the signals from the structure itself. Dr. Nora Ellis grew more unsettled with each passing hour. She spent long nights listening to recordings, comparing dolphin vocalizations to the pulses. They're not just reacting, she thought. She explained to Leona and Alina one evening. They're cooperating. It's almost like they're maintaining a perimeter, keeping everything in balance. Jonas, however, was captivated. He pored over centuries of maritime records, spreading maps across the tables. Look at this, he said, pointing to dozens of red dots marking disappearances. They're not random. They form geometric patterns around this very trench. These incidents go back to colonial times. This structure has been influencing our world for centuries, maybe longer. Leona leaned over the maps, her eyes narrowing. If that's true, then it's not just history we're uncovering. It's stewardship. Someone or something has been guarding these waters. Alina listened, her thoughts returning to the chamber, to the preserved artifacts, to the eerie image of a ship's nameplate glowing in alien light. She wondered if Jonas was right, that this was not invasion, but guardianship. Yet as she stood on the deck that night, gazing out at the silent, glassy sea, Alina could not shake the feeling that the line between guardian and captor was razor thin. The sea was calm, the stars bright, but deep below, the structure pulsed steadily, as though it had been waiting all along. And now, with Project Silent Tide in motion, it was no longer waiting. The research platform never truly slept. Even at midnight, lights glowed across the deck. Machines hummed. The loudest presence around the trench came from the sea itself. Every day, without fail, the dolphins gathered. Dr. Nora Ellis stood at the railing, headphones pressed against her ears, listening to the water. Her recorder picked up the high-frequency whistles and clicks that most humans could never hear unaided. She scribbled notes quickly, the pencil smudging across the damp paper. "They're not behaving like dolphins," she murmured. "Not at all." Commander Alina Graves joined her, hands clasped behind her back. "Explain." Nora turned, her expression tense. "Normally, dolphins hunt, play, scatter. But these are patrolling. Look out there, beneath the moonlight. Dark shapes slice through the Kong Sea in precise arcs. The dolphins moved as though choreographed, dozens of them swimming in perfect symmetry. Occasionally, one would leap, not at random, but in time with the others, like soldiers marking rhythm. Formations, Nora said. They're maintaining a perimeter around the trench. I've studied dolphin pods for 15 years. I've never seen coordination like this. Alina watched silently. She was used to unpredictability, storms, engines, even people. But this kind of order in the wild unsettled her more than chaos ever could. "What are they guarding?" Alina asked, finally. Nora hesitated. "I think they're guarding it. The structure, or maybe guiding us to it." Before Alina could reply, Dr. Leona Valdez approached, her arms full of data sheets. "Commander, you need to hear this. We've been running pattern analysis on the dolphin calls. They're not random." Nora nodded quickly. "I told you." Leona spread the papers across a crate, pointing to graphs and lines of code. These whistles follow structured sequences, repeating intervals, mirrored frequencies. It's not casual chatter. It's patterned communication, like language. Alina frowned. "You're saying they're talking about the structure? Or with it?" Leona said softly. The three women stood in silence as the dolphins continued their strange patrol. The following morning, Colonel Marcus Kane made his opinion clear during the daily briefing. "They're a distraction," Kane said, his voice clipped. "Marine life drawn to electromagnetic fields, nothing more." "You're wrong," Nora said sharply. She rarely interrupted, but her patience had reached its limit. "These pods aren't reacting, they're participating. The sequences in their calls match the pulses coming from the structure." Kane smirked. "So now the dolphins are collaborating with aliens?" "That's exactly what I'm suggesting," Nora shot back. "Look at the recordings. These aren't natural patterns. They're structured, mathematical. Something has changed them, enhanced them." The room stirred with murmurs. Alina studied Nora's face. The marine biologist was not prone to wild theories. She had built her career on quiet observation and patience. If she was speaking with this kind of conviction, it meant she had evidence. Dr. Jonas Merrick leaned forward, eyes alight with curiosity. "Think of it, Colonel. Dolphins have always been intelligent, but limited in how far we could understand them. What if this structure has been guiding their evolution, nudging their communication abilities over centuries? They could be acting as intermediaries between us and whatever built this thing." "You're chasing fairy tales," Kane snapped. "Animals don't mediate contact. Armies do." "With respect," Leona said evenly. "Armies can't speak to whatever's beneath us. But maybe they can. The argument hung heavy in the room until Admiral Huxley raised his hand. Enough. Until we have proof, it's speculation. But speculation is why we're here. Continue studying the dolphins. Quietly. No media leaks. No unnecessary chatter. The meeting broke, but the tension lingered. Later that afternoon, Nora took a small boat out to the edge of the dolphin perimeter, accompanied only by a young technician. The sea was still eerily calm, but the dolphins approached without hesitation. They surrounded the boat, whistling and clicking in bursts that made the water vibrate. Nora lowered a waterproof recorder into the waves. The patterns were unmistakable. Repeated sequences of 7, followed by longer bursts, then silence, then repetition. The technicians stared, wide-eyed. "They're responding to us!" Nora leaned over the side, her voice soft. "Not to us, to them." She pointed toward the trench. As if to confirm her words, the water beneath them glowed faintly. Not from the dolphins, but from the depths below. The same bluish shimmer that had surrounded the Odyssey. The technician's hands trembled on the edge of the boat. "Dr. Ellis, what if it's trying to talk back?" Nora looked out at the circling dolphins, their eyes glinting with uncanny intelligence. For the first time, she wondered if these creatures had always known more than humans gave them credit for. That evening, as the sun sank below the horizon, the platform gathered for another briefing. Nora presented her recordings, playing the sequences aloud. The room filled with strange whistles and pulses, alien yet hauntingly beautiful. "Listen to the structure," she said, playing the deep pulses recorded from the trench. "Now listen to the dolphin's reply." She switched tracks, and the similarity was undeniable. The scientists leaned forward, their faces pale with wonder. Even Colonel Kane looked uneasy. Alina spoke quietly, but her words carried across the room. "If this is true, then the dolphins aren't just animals caught in the middle. They've been shaped for this. Prep, maybe for centuries, to play a role in contact." Jonas tapped his notebook thoughtfully. "Guardians, translators, partners, whatever the case, we cannot ignore them." Silence filled the room. For the first time, the enormity of the situation pressed against every mind present. This was not simply about technology or alien craft. It was about communication, an ancient partnership humans had never understood until now. Outside, the dolphins leapt in the moonlight, their voices carrying over the still sea. The pulses from the trench answered in kind, deep and steady. And as the humans listened, it became clear that the ocean itself was part of the dialogue. Something vast was speaking, and through the dolphins, humanity was being invited to answer. The platform was never quiet anymore. Helicopters came and went, military radios buzzed, and generators hummed day and night. Yet amid the noise, nothing. Samuel Dre felt a strange stillness pressing on him. He had arrived less than 24 hours ago, flown in on short notice from his post at a coastal research institute. Samuel was not a soldier, nor a career government scientist. He was an oceanographer, specializing in unusual magnetic patterns in deep trenches. But his invitation to Project Silent Tide had come with a line that stopped him cold. "Your expertise is needed regarding anomalies connected to the 1978 Horizon incident." the horizon. His father's ship. For almost 30 years, Samuel had lived with questions that never found answers. Captain Robert Dre, commander of the research vessel Horizon, had vanished with his crew while investigating strange magnetic disturbances near Bermuda. The official report claimed a sudden storm had likely sunk the ship, though no wreckage was ever recovered. But Samuel remembered the nights when his mother would sit by the window, staring at the sea as though waiting for a shadow to return. And now, after decades of silence, he had been summoned to the very place where it all began. When Samuel stepped into the command tent for his first briefing, all eyes turned toward him. Admiral Huxley introduced him with a short nod. "This is Dr. Samuel Dre. His research into oceanic magnetic fields is among the best in the world, and he has a personal connection to this region." Samuel forced himself to meet their gazes. "My father was Captain Robert Dre. The Horizon vanished in this trench. I've spent most of my career trying to understand what happened." The room went still. Even Colonel Kane, always quick to interrupt, remained silent for once. Dr. Leona Valdez spoke gently. "Then you know better than anyone what's at stake." Samuel nodded. "I know that this region doesn't play by our rules. Whatever lies below has been shaping events for centuries, and I believe my father's disappearance was connected to it." After the meeting, Alina Graves found him standing alone on the deck, staring into. "You didn't tell them everything," she said quietly. Samuel didn't look up. "I didn't tell them that my father's last transmission mentioned seeing something. Not a storm, not an enemy vessel, just something in the water that shouldn't exist." Alina studied him for a long moment. "You think it was the structure?" "I don't just think," Samuel said, his voice low. "I know. The dolphins surfaced near the platform then, their whistles carrying across the still sea." Samuel leaned against the railing, listening. "They were there too, the night the Horizon vanished. A fishing boat reported seeing dozens of them, swimming in circles before disappearing into the trench. I thought it was coincidence, but now—" "You think they witnessed what happened?" Alina finished. Samuel finally turned toward her, his eyes sharp. "No, I think they've been involved all along." Later that night, Samuel joined Nora Ellis in the acoustic lab. Reels of dolphin recordings played on a loop. Their whistles and clicks mapped into waveforms across glowing screens. "Listen to this," Nora said, pointing at a sequence. "It repeats every 108 minutes, exactly." Samuel froze. 108 minutes? "Yes. Why?" He pulled a worn notebook from his bag, flipping through pages filled with his father's handwriting. Near the back, scrawled hastily during the Horizon's final days, were notations, magnetic pulses recurring every 108 minutes. Samuel's voice broke slightly. "My father logged the same pattern. It's the heartbeat of the structure." Nora's eyes widened. Then he saw it. He must have been close when the anomaly pulled them under. Samuel closed the notebook, his hands trembling. And if the dolphins were already acting as intermediaries, maybe he tried to communicate. Maybe that's why they preserved him. Nora frowned. Preserved? Samuel hesitated. He hadn't told anyone yet, but deep in his gut, he felt it. His father hadn't drowned. He hadn't vanished into nothing. The structure, the dolphins, the pulses. They all suggested something different. That maybe Captain Robert Dre was still there, held in some way humans couldn't yet understand. The next morning, Samuel joined the crew of the Odyssey for another descent. Colonel Kane argued bitterly against it, but Admiral Huxley approved. Dr. Dre, Huxley said, before they boarded, "You're not here as a son. You're here as a scientist. Don't let your personal history cloud your judgment." Samuel nodded, though the words cut deep. Inside the Odyssey, Claire Harrow piloted with calm precision, while Alina monitored the instruments. Jonas Merrick sat beside Samuel, sketching constantly, his excitement barely contained. As they descended, the familiar shimmer of light surrounded them, glowing stronger the deeper they went. Escorting the submersible in formation. Depth, 800 feet, Claire reported. Approaching target. The structure came into view, its massive form illuminated by the Odyssey's beams. The pulses were stronger now, vibrating through the hull in rhythm with the dolphin calls. Samuel leaned forward, his chest tightening. It's different. The pulse pattern has shifted. The sonar confirmed his words. Instead of the steady intervals they had recorded before, the pulses now mirrored the dolphin's whistles, as if the two were weaving a dialogue. Jonas whispered, "They're waiting for us." Alina's voice was steady, but tense. "Hold position." The structure's surface glowed faintly. Then, just as before, a smaller triangular craft emerged, gliding smoothly toward them. The dolphins parted to make way, their whistles rising in a strange, urgent chorus. Samuel pressed his hand against the viewport. For a moment, he swore he saw something within the glow, an outline. "Al," his voice shook. "Father?" The others turned, startled, but Samuel barely heard them. His heart pounded as the craft hovered in front of the Odyssey, pulsing with golden light, as though answering a call made decades earlier. And in that instant, Samuel Dre knew this was no coincidence. The anomaly hadn't just taken his father, it had kept him. The Odyssey hovered in the deep, caught between silence and song. The triangular craft floated just beyond the viewport, pulsing with a rhythm that matched the dolphin's calls. The golden light from its surface bathed the submersible, filling the cabin with an otherworldly glow. Commander Alina Graves steadied her breath. "Maintain position," she ordered, though her voice trembled ever so slightly. Claire Harrow's hands hovered over the controls, every muscle taut. Dr. Jonas Merrick was scribbling furiously, his sketches a blur of shapes and symbols. Samuel Dre sat frozen, his eyes locked. The light was not just light. It was memory, hope, and a promise whispered across decades. He whispered one word under his breath, a word no one else in the cabin caught. "Father." The craft emitted a low hum, and a docking arm extended gracefully toward the Odyssey. Claire's voice shook. "Commander, it's trying to connect again." Alina's jaw clenched. "We hold. No rash moves." But the dolphins outside seemed to disagree. They swam in synchronized circles, clicking and whistling in urgent patterns. The sonar translated their movement into waves that aligned perfectly with the pulses of the craft. It wasn't aggression, it was guidance. "They want us to follow," Jonas breathed. "They've been waiting for this moment." Alina hesitated, her instincts battling her training. But before she could answer, the docking arm latched with a soft thud. The Odyssey trembled, then stilled. "Connection complete," Claire reported. Inside the submersible, lights flickered and then dimmed, replaced by a soft amber glow filtering through the walls. The hum of the engines faded. For a moment, there was only silence. as though the sea itself had drawn in a breath. Samuel's pulse thundered in his ears. "We have to go in," he said suddenly. "This is what it's been building toward." Alina shot him a hard look. "This is not your decision, Dr. Dre." But Jonas leaned forward. "Commander, we cannot ignore this. The structure is opening to us. Whatever's inside, this could be the breakthrough humanity has dreamed of." Claire muttered under her breath, "Or our last mistake." Alina exhaled slowly, the weight of command pressing on her shoulders. Finally, she nodded. "Two of us cross. One stays with the Odyssey." "I'm going," Samuel said instantly. "So am I," Jonas added, clutching his notebook. Alina's eyes narrowed, but she didn't argue. "If anything goes wrong, you break free and surface." The airlock hissed as they entered the docking passage. Their boots rang softly against the metallic floor, every step echoing in the narrow tube. The walls glowed faintly, alive with flowing patterns that shifted as they walked, as though the craft itself was aware of their presence. "Commander," Samuel said quietly, "it feels welcoming." "It feels wrong," Alina replied, though even she couldn't deny the strange calm in the air. The passage opened into a chamber unlike anything human eyes had ever seen. Curved walls shimmered between solid and translucent, flowing with symbols that pulsed gently. At the center stood a console, smooth and fluid, its surface glowing faintly. Jonas gasped. "Look, images!" Objects preserved as though displayed in a gallery. Samuel's breath caught. Among the images was one that made his heart ache. The nameplate of the Horizon, glowing in the light. "My father's ship," he whispered, stepping closer. "They have it." Alina placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. "Easy. Stay focused." Suddenly, the floor beneath them pulsed, and a new chamber revealed itself. A translucent wall slid back, exposing a preservation pod at the far end. Within it lay a human figure, suspended in a field of soft blue light. Samuel stumbled forward, his hands trembling. No! The figure was unmistakable. An older man dressed in the uniform of a research vessel captain, his face lined with age, yet perfectly preserved, as though time itself had been held at bay. Jonas whispered in awe, "Commander, that's a human being." Samuel pressed his hands against the glass-like barrier of the pod. His voice cracked. "It's him. It's my father." Alina's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" "I'd know his face anywhere." Samuel's voice broke into a whisper. "He's alive. They've been keeping him alive." The pod glowed brighter, and a sequence of symbols appeared above it, projected in midair. Jonas scribbled frantically, trying to capture each detail. It's some kind of record, a history. They couldn't communicate with him before, so they preserved him, waiting until they could. Samuel's eyes filled with tears. They saved him all this time. He wasn't lost. He was waiting. The chamber vibrated softly, and the symbols shifted again, forming an image that made even Alina freeze. The pod opening. The man awakening. "Commander," Jonas said breathlessly, "it's a protocol. They're showing us what comes next." Samuel pressed closer, the air filled with a low hum that resonated deep in their bones. Alina gripped her sidearm instinctively, though she didn't raise it. Her voice was hushed. "Be ready." Samuel could barely breathe. After 30 years, his words broke into silence. The pod's glow brightened until the chamber was bathed in light. The man inside stirred. His chest rose, slow but unmistakable. Captain Robert Dre was waking.